Hello and welcome to Top Guns, HR that moves the business. I'm Puja Bothra, Associate Editor at ETHRWorld. This is a podcast series where we get behind the curtain into the minds of leaders who are quietly and not so quietly reshaping some of India's most iconic organizations. Because at the end of the day, every business decision is a people decision first. In our first episode, we have with us Dr. C. Jayakumar, EVP and CHRO of L&T, in conversation with Udayan Dutt, CHRO of RPG Group, and James Thomas, Vice President and Head of SAP SuccessFactors, India and Subcontinent. Hello, welcome to Top Guns, HR that moves the business. This is a podcast series we're doing in association with SAP SuccessFactors at ETHRWorld. So let's start a deep dive conversation around what is happening in the ecosystem. CJK, let me start by asking you, across engineering, manufacturing, and enterprise tech, there is a shift which we are seeing when it comes to AI adoption. There are supply chain shifts. What is the single biggest workforce pivot for you and your organization at this point of time?
Thank you, Puja. Thanks for having me here. Thanks to SuccessFactors. Very interesting. One thing comes to us is, how do you keep a future-ready workforce ready? That is the ultimate thing to me. Today, we are in a place where we have enough orders, enough and more orders. Okay, the order book at the top line is not an issue, and we are in an EPC world where it is most of the things are based on L1. That is a tender. The lowest person gets. So we work on a very, very tight margins. So biggest thing which comes to our mind is, how do you enhance the productivity? Once you're talking about productivity, there's a limit to stretch human productivity. That is where the technology, AI, etc. comes in. How do you leverage technology in different operations, whether it is building intelligence modeling, or IoTs, or AI, or data analytics, including using of drones, etc. So how do you bring in technology so that we enhance, reduce cost, improve the speed, and bring in more productivity, so that we are, that is the first thing. If for doing that, you have to get ready your people. So how do you skill them, reskill them, multi-skill them, and then ensure that they adopt this? That is the second important aspect. And the third thing is, we are also entering into many new areas of business, which is, the skill itself is not available in the market. So how do you get senior talent from outside and then use internal talent, train them and build them? So mainly, the biggest factor is, how do you bring in technology to improve productivity, performance, reduce cost, etc. That is the biggest thing which you're looking at. Once you handle that, then all other things falls in place.
Udayan, what's the biggest pivot for you at RPG?
I think the biggest pivot is exactly what you called out as the elements, which are all, I'd say, elements of disruption. And I say it in a positive way because it's opportunity. So we are fortunate and privileged to be sitting in the fastest growing major economy in the world. And that comes with its massive set of opportunities. So as Dr. Kumar just said, their order book is full, and it's a similar story across industries. I don't think seeking business is a big challenge for many companies, but it's really about how do you go and deliver on those. EPC is a classic case. Again, we also have an EPC presence where we understand of how margins, etc. are thin. So even when we talk of AI adoption and we talk of technology, it's not because of only trying to shave costs to reduce headcount, but it's to make more and grow more and go into areas where we weren't being able to operate earlier because probably it was not as profitable for us. So and I suspect it's the same across other companies as well. So it's really managing this disruption, which for me is the biggest pivot that the workforce is making. Because on one hand, you have a technology-led disruption, you have a disruption led to a geopolitical situation that is leading to supply chain changes. And then you have to train a workforce who have to train themselves, not just the leaders, but a workforce who have to train themselves to make the most of the opportunity that is coming with this massive growth potential that is there. And how do they ride the wave for themselves, for their teams, and for their companies? So I think that in a nutshell, just how do you manage that change and the disruption positively for yourself is the biggest pivot.
Yeah. So, workforce transformation is like what is driving all these
Absolutely.
aspects.
Yeah.
So, James, let me ask you that L&T and RPG Group have different realities. How does a platform like SuccessFactors flex to meet different organizational models to be able to enable leaders with their journey of workforce transformation?
Yeah. Thank you, Puja, for having us here. Wonderful to have this conversation. So if you look at, very diverse businesses within L&T itself, CJK runs several independent companies, so to say, or Udayan for that matter. RPG is a diversified conglomerate. So within them itself, or when we look at customers across, the whole philosophy where it has moved today, right, is how do we take a open, interoperable platform view to people transformation, right? So there are a lot of interesting facets developing there. One is the good old times of looking at technology as standardization has evolved to bringing balance with personalization, right? Or the human employee and the dimensions of a human being is changing with a hybrid workforce of how do we interoperate a human with a chatbot or a agent, areas like that. So where SuccessFactors is today innovating or investing is how do we enable organizations to harness these aspects better, as CJK rightly put it, to make the workforce future ready, right? To me, it's an optimization of the people supply chain. A lot of other aspects of what we define as supply chains have already optimized. Possibly the human element has the biggest opportunity, as Udayan said, to optimize further. And optimization is not just a cost optimization, as CJK said. There is a productivity dimension to it. There is a cost dimension to it. There is an experience dimension to it. There is a simplicity dimension to it. So a whole lot of facets get in today. Particularly, we are dealing with people, possibly the most unique and the unlimited potential element of a supply chain, right? Every other resource possibly has a constraint. Human being possibly has no constraints, provided you unleash them. So SuccessFactors, our view is it's not just technology, it's also understanding the aspect of this from a where the future is headed. And it's quite disruptive. So it's not that all of us have a crystal ball to exactly predict how it will happen, but can the platform absorb the shocks as much as possible and provide a least risk option to CJK at L&T, Udayan at RPG? And it's a journey, right? We are in partnership as a journey across years in how we try to keep on evolving and improving for them. They keep demanding more things from us. Yeah.
Yeah, there has to be a collaboration because need is the mother of all invention. If you have a need, SuccessFactors will scale up to fulfill that need, I guess. So, Udayan, let me ask you that RPG represents our workforce across socio-economic spectrum.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of balance skilling at one end to the other end? And do you see the appetite for learning more in the shop floor workforce than at the senior management level?
I'll take the second one first in terms of the appetite for learning. And I would probably begin by saying a resounding yes. That there is a big appetite that people have to want to reskill, to want to upskill. And my hypothesis is that's again founded on the aspiration and the ambition that people have. So again, one of the roots, or should I say the branches of why we are growing as we are as an economy is also fueling a lot of ambition and aspiration amongst everybody, amongst the younger generation. So when you're talking about people at the shop floor or people in the front line of a sales organization, let's just stay with these two just for discussion's sake. They are also now looking at life very differently. They're not looking at very traditional ways of living and saying, oh, I'll be happy if I live in a company provided accommodation and there's a school that's being paid for by the company and, have a life where I'm working in the same organization for the next 30 years. You look at numbers on urban migration, you look at the number of opportunities that are there before them in terms of not limiting themselves to wanting to do one kind of job or stay with one sort of vocation, but trying out different things. And last but not the least, I also find it fascinating the risks that people are willing to take today. And it's not linked to necessarily, should I say, some traditional insulations or, safety nets that people had, that you would say, okay, if I had a certain degree of financial, should I say, freedom, flexibilities when I could take a risk. It's not linked to that. Now, all of that is therefore then leading to people wanting to reinvent themselves, wanting to constantly learn. And it's also linked to how we are evolving our own skills in terms of what happens on the shop floor today or what happens on the front line today with the use of technology, right? So whether it is AI-led technology, whether it's digital, whether it is data and analytics, whether it is robotics. So the whole profile of people working in that front line itself is changing. I think the second aspect where it's fascinating to see this is linked, in my view, to the way people's demands of the workplace itself are changing. And one of the things that they want is constant learning opportunities. And that gets me to that bit and you asking in terms of, how do you make that happen, is you have to democratize it. And technology has to be the bedrock of that democratization. It has to be bite-sized. It has to be a combination of some things that people learn on the go, people learn in the short form. It's also where people have aspiration to get certifications, etc. And today you have a multitude of such platforms that are available. I mean, gone are the days when you could define a curriculum for people based on a certain function, based on a certain role, and then just made a large mass of population go through it. Today they want to see that choice. And sometimes they want to see that choice even on their mobile phones. So that's really how I see the world evolving.
Yeah. And, that is the need of the hour, because for us to make India's demographic asset and not a liability,
Absolutely.
we need to fuel learning and getting ready at that level.
Yes.
Jayakumar, I'd like to ask you, how is the CHRO's mandate changing? Now, when you sit at the leadership table, how do you show a case for business, maybe through productivity or through transformation, and not just talk about HR metrics?
Very interesting question. Earlier we were talking about number of people recruited, number of training program conducted, how the appraisal is done. Today the entire thing is on outcome. Okay, for example, I can take an example of if you're entering into a new business like semiconductor. So earlier it would have been there, get an org chart, which are the key positions, whether I filled that position, right? Whether I rolled out the HR processes, implementation of some system. Now in the table, it is whether the whole team is performing. What is getting the whole team, integrating them culturally, having a common goal, move towards the performance. That is the outcome which is seen. So we cannot say I have hired all the people now over. So the thing is changing towards the performance, productivity, etc. That's how the whole thing is getting changed, not into the parts of the thing. As a whole, finally, whether we are achieving the outcome. That's what is seen.
Yeah. James, if HR is now measured with business outcome and business success, what kind of data SAP SuccessFactors can provide leaders to make that business case?
Yeah. So to what CJ has said, absolutely. So it's the whole HR function, or how we look at people, is shifting to more performance outcome driven, independent of whether it's a new business or an existing business itself. So what can a technology platform do, right, to facilitate this? I see it in two dimensions, the way our innovations are focused on. One is, while there is a lot of data, the question is, do you really have secure, reliable, good quality data connected in a structured fashion that is meaningful and useful at a given point in time? I find organizations a lot of times struggle with it. They have a lot of technology, a lot of systems, a lot of tools, but good quality, secure data is still a challenge. So one of the things that at SAP we do is look at these things enterprise grade, right? It's good to be fanciful, look at bells and whistles, but we need to be very robust when it comes to a data model or a data architecture in the way leadership and hence the larger employees should look at it. So one innovation we are significantly looking at it. how do you need to shift your data architecture itself, the HR domain model itself, from how data is absorbed into the structures. Structures are domain specific, whether it is org structures, cost structures, right? Team structures, but they need to embed into a data architecture so that it throws out meaningful real-time visibility to leadership, be it CJK, be it Udayan, or what they represent in a boardroom to business. Yeah, that will help a much bigger agility to decision making and to establish that the outcomes or the dimensions that is being asked of CHROs today can be met. The second dimension, which is disrupting, I would take it to the what is called the hybrid model, right? I found an interesting term called vector squads. I was like, what is this vector squad? As CJK said, today a CHRO who's looking at saying, okay, how do I do workforce planning? How many people at what levels, to saying, how do I hybrid it with agents? Where is digital assistants coming, where roles by themselves are being absorbed digitally? And hence, where is the human element going to add significant value? So there is a radical disruption happening at the top end of the game, right? It is not just at the process layer of HR. I'm talking of the real planning stage, and that is becoming fairly involved with the CFO and the CEO, because it has very profound impact on a non-linear productivity or an optimization game in a people space, right? So actually, CHROs need to start owning digital employees too, not just human employees. So it is a radical transformation, and we are at SuccessFactors, we want to take a very platform-driven approach. When I speak to CHROs or CIOs or leaders, they are all investing in agents or use cases of various kind. But a lot of times those use cases are not seamlessly connecting to each other. It is a problem for the future. Today, a CHRO may be happy, a CIO may be happy, a CEO may say, oh, wonderful, you have done some cool things. I have a conversational chatbot or a nice AI use case. But over a period of time, this will get stuck. Because the interoperability, as much as the same issues there at the data layer, the same is unfolding at the vector squad layer. So this is where SAP SuccessFactors, we are hugely focused on. While the cool to have, the cool things are important, it is not an easy conversation because the market is disrupting and a lot of CHROs come to me and say, James, you also need to bring some cool things to me, you know. But we are more focused on these two dimensions, on how we build robustness, security, scalability to a platform-driven approach to this. Yeah, easier said than done, but that's where our innovations are.
You know, I get it because with Gen Z and the generation Alpha coming to the offices, so they need cool stuff. So, you know, I couldn't agree less that a unified source of truth for data is required, and which is the data architecture, which is the key today. Oh, then very simple question to you. One workforce initiative where you saw clear before and after impact on business?
I think singularly, one thing which may not change is, again, and it's one that I have seen work really well across different companies that I've had the privilege of working in, is singularly setting up and making sure that, you know, a vision and a direction of an organization set in a very purposeful manner and then communicated down to the last person in a very methodical way, where there is a combination of inspiration, energy for what the future will bring, and the pride that gets associated with it on one hand, but then also talking to people and making it real for them on what's in it for them, what's in it for me, and how do I benefit from this entire journey. And it has been done. It's one that I have seen being done. I was fortunate to be working for a business unit within one of my earlier employers, which was the worst performing business for that company globally, and it became the best performing business on the back of this. And it was like an 18-month journey that we did, led by the business leader, where it became very real. There were bite-sized pieces, there was clear direction given to everyone, and then you led everything through. Actually, that was a big learning for me, where things like HR processes, performance management, development, etc. became incidental to the whole thing. But really driving this singularly through. And then I saw it happen a second time as well. And that's the one thing that always continues to drive me, that do you have a inspiring vision, and can you bring that vision to reality for others, not just talk at 30,000 feet?
No, this makes so much sense, because this world is a VUCA world, and there is so much, confusion and uncertainty. Having a solid purpose can really
That's a leader's job. I think it's a leader's job to bring comfort and stability in a VUCA world to people around them. And that could be peers, that could be superiors, that could be subordinates. I think singularly that's a leader's job, and that's a leader's job at any level.
CJK?
Yeah, not because I'm here with James. We brought the digital transformation in HR. It's an 80-year-old organization, evolved, different companies evolved at different times. In fact, each company had different systems. In fact, within a company itself, there will be 3-4 systems. One is for talent acquisition, one for performance, one for data. We brought a single system. We moved to that. Integrated entire. Now it is a single source of truth. And all systems integrated. Not only within HR, even with finance, with supply chain, resource mobilization, role-based organization, project mobilization, immediately which roles are. It changed the whole landscape. Today, everything is at fingerprints. That is one. Next is talent management, which we started with identifying them young, putting them to a real, very structured talent council at each of the business, identifying the performance potential through assessment centers, identifying a core people, then offsite they go sit and discuss 2 days, 3 days about each person. What is his performance? What is his done? If he has to move further, what type of roles he has to be shifted? Very, very candid conversation about the person, and then arriving at an action plan. It has given results. So to the earlier question, whatever you did, unless finally we are talking about talent management, leadership development, when it comes for a succession, if you don't find people there, then all the effort is gone. So to the management, to today, the expectation of CEO is, you do anything, but is there a right person at the right time? That is the result-oriented thing coming up.
James, where do you find a sweet spot between technology and human touch when it comes to having a HR platform, carry the bulk of work? Does CHROs need to be threatened when you create, platforms like SuccessFactors, which can do so much of work where humans are not required?
No, I think to the contrary, right? One of the areas that I think both CJK and Udayan is alluding to is the strategic element of the people dimension, right? And a lot of times, not because they are not strategically oriented or they don't have a seat on the table to do that, they just get inundated with the administrative aspects of bringing so many elements of the people's processes together. And what today platforms like SuccessFactors or in general where technology is headed is to take that overhead off them. So I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's a transition, but I think it is disrupting so rapidly. I would see very soon, it's already happening in fact, where people like Udayan and their leadership teams will spend more time in being able to be true business partners, right? We have had this HR business partner term goes around, but HR business partners continue to do a lot of admin tasks, is what I would say. That has to shift. And CHROs like CJK and Udayan, I can tell for sure, they are leading these kind of things. All the messages I see for them in my conversations or in general, when I see them on LinkedIn or other activities, they are really leading this in terms of the shift. This is a HR community shift itself. How can we be more strategic than be administrative? And these are two tracks from the good old days of employee relations, right? These two tracks run parallel for a HR function, right? Now there is a disruptive shift happening to this where one is really willing to take the leap of faith, so to say, and CHROs just need to jump onto that bandwagon is my view. Allow all this admin stuff to be done by platforms. Yeah. Do they need to be accurate? Do they need to, not mislead? Absolutely. And that's where I said data architectures and data models and getting good quality, secure, reliable, correct data is important, because they should be able to trust that the system is giving them the correct output, and then play the strategy on top of it is where the world has to move and is already moving. I don't think there is a choice for CHROs, actually.
Yeah. I think no generation has seen that kind of change as this generation is seeing when it comes to workplaces. And of course, amongst other, the HR community changing. So how do you envision the workplace and a CHRO's role in future, let's say 2030 or 2035?
I'll be provocative to say I'm not sure whether the role will exist in its current shape and form, for sure. I see it as 3 sets in the organization. One being the organization strategy, the other being organization technology, be it the enterprise platform, be it the experience layer and everything in between. And the third would be people and capabilities. And the intersection of these 3 sets is what would form what is the current day CHRO. And with humility, I say this, that the reason why I think about this is on 2 parameters. One, it is actually the HR role today that can have an enterprise view across. Sometimes even finance doesn't. Like, if my background is consumer goods, if I even go back and think to those days, finance or the active CFO role, etc., did not have so much to do with many aspects of the business because they were just not big enough or important enough. But for the HR person, everything is important because it finally concerns people. And you can't say one set of people are more important than the other. So that's where the strategy bit comes in. And I think linked to that is the ultimate trusted advisor role that an HR person plays is when the CEO or the business leader actually relies on the HR person as their sounding board. And therefore having a sound understanding of organization strategy is crucial. The second is to what James has said of how the role has to evolve and how people have to be dealt with has to be on the basis of platform of technology. I mean, we are leading the charge on that even globally to some degree of how technology is becoming front and center for everybody. And then the third is, of course, people capabilities. So that's the intersection. Now, whether that is today a strategy and transformation person who comes and takes that role, whether it is a person who's a chief information and digitization officer who comes and takes that role, or it is the HR person, time will tell.
CJK, your opinion?
Absolutely, I agree with him. The whole focus will be on capability building.
Right.
Okay, how do you bring in a future-ready workforce? Because the entire piece, 50 to 80% of the piece what you're doing will become automated, and your org chart will look with 1 person, 3 agent, again 1 person, 4 agent, like that. So totally how you building capability, coaching, mentoring, counseling, these things will take front foot. Personalized coaching, developing people, that will be the main focus of that. And as a sounding board for CEO, because the entire operations to be taken care of. For me, it is how do you spot talent at the right level, taking them up with use of the technology. For example, if I take a performance management system, earlier focus was entirely on goal setting and then regular feedback and all those things. Today, all those things are taken care by automation. Today, for example, of performance management, we have even a goal setting, a voice to text. When a person opens his performance management system, based on the backend data available, his last performance appraisal, his role, his job description, everything together, it has 3-4 voice to text question. What are the key priorities? What is the skills you want to develop, etc. Based on that, the AI model gives 5-6 key KRAs with the measure of performance, milestones, etc. So his thing becomes very easy to only tweak it and do that. For a boss, the entire feedback is summed up and it is given based on his last performance, his training, etc. So how he personally talks to him, gives the feedback and one-on-one conversation leading the team, that personal connect will take over than the today's operations. And finally, how do you have the end capability in the organization?
I just want to pick up on something and get some feedback from CJK and Udayan. Culture. right? So, productivity and culture in this new context, I see a serious disruption. And CEOs really struggling to understand where the culture of the organization is, right? Even in an open house or any of those community meetings that C-level people are having, I think there are questions going up to them which they struggle to even respond to. Because I wouldn't be surprised if the CHRO definition changes to a chief culture and productivity ambassador or something. Yeah, so I wanted to understand the culture piece. I don't know whether CJK or Udayan has a point of view.
There are 4 pillars: people, process, technology, and culture. Okay, process and technology will move forward. How do you get the people aligned to the culture? That is the most important thing. Yeah, and the two, when you are growing at a much faster pace, you may say, I have an L&T culture. Today, if I am doubling my business or tripling the business, there is an attrition going, some people going, and all the new people coming. What culture exists? How do you sustain that culture? Yeah. So, constant effort is taken on OD exercises, various forms of things to sustain and, in fact, enhance our culture.
I think for me, again, going back to that bit of what I called out as strategy, technology, and capability, and the, where the 3 sets intersect. If you imagine A intersection B intersection C is probably where employee experience and culture sits. So again, adding to what just what you said, right? That there's technology, there's capability, there's culture, and I think that's where culture sits. So there will be multitudes of definitions of culture. I think at the end of the day, for me, the values that an organization gets driven by or that gets founded as an identity, I think safe to say that today when we talk of any organization, we always associate that name and a brand with a set of values of what they stand for or what we think they stand for. We may not have even engaged with that organization, but we have a notion about them. And that becomes the overwhelming, for me, the cornerstone. So, and then even when the organization grows, it morphs, it changes, it evolves, right? Some of these organizations have been around for hundreds of years now. Some of them have been there for 200 years now, right? Globally. And having said that, there is still that underlying set of value system that defines them as to who they are, which does not change. And that becomes culture. And I actually believe that culture will not be the remit of the chief HR officer. Every leader is the custodian of culture.
So, during COVID, we used to talk about business continuity, and today we are talking about HR continuity. And it is on us, HR community, to make sure that they are at the center of people decisions. We've kept a rapid fire round, so I'll quickly start with the questions. CJK, we start with you. What's the one belief you held in your career that you challenge today?
I was thinking of performance potential and individual capability.
Okay, we'll keep it very crisp.
Today it is, no, it is how you manage your team and get it done.
How you manage your team and get it done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll probably say it in a way that I did not have this belief, but I have this, is what I just spoke about, risk-taking.
Okay.
I can see risk-taking amongst the newer generation being at a significantly different level. I'll give a very small example. I'm sure all of us or many of us know a 17 or an 18-year-old today in India who's taking a gap year or deciding to take a gap year. It's not an uncommon thing. In my generation, if I went to my parents and said, I want a gap year, even if they were supportive, I'm sure society at large would have thought there's something wrong with this person.
James, one belief you would challenge now?
From thinking that careers are in black and white to the 50 shades of grey.
What is one HR metric that every CEO needs in his or her dashboard?
I will say productivity, not in terms of individual productivity, overall human capability, how it is in the organization. That has to be seen in relevance to his vision and the future.
I would say identification of the most critical roles that are linked to strategy, and then the metrics that go around it, whether it's attrition, whether it is the depth of succession plan, and productivity within that in terms of who's there. Yeah, exactly.
James?
Leadership pipeline.
Yeah, aligned.
If you were stepping into a CHRO's role today, what is something you would do immediately?
Should I go first? Because I am just stepping into a CHRO role. I've not even been
I mean,
a CHRO for a
yeah,
year.
but you've been.
But
Yeah, okay.
So in all humility, I think it's just a lot of learning of where you continue to build on not just your functional capability, but you build followership. And you build followership with trust, with your, of course, your capability, but then also your ability to continue to deliver. I think that's the singular thing.
CGK?
Yeah, I have not done this for the last 38 years, but let me proceed. If I go into somewhere, first try to understand the whole business part of it. How do that business make money? What is the priorities? First step. Next, look at what is my total talent. How it is aligned, where is the gap? Then how do you see that we make it ready for that?
Yeah, it
Simple.
just sounds so simple question, but when you look at the number of businesses and the number of workforce, it
Yeah.
looks
So
like
you spend
such
a long time
daunting
doing
task.
that. I have spent
Yeah.
a lot of time just going around, to your point of just understanding, okay, what makes this business tick? And it's not the same everywhere.
And as he said, then only you know which are the key roles which adds maximum impact. What is the availability? What is the readiness for
Gaps.
that
Yeah.
gap, etc.
James, if you wake up as a CHRO tomorrow, what is going to be your top
I
priority?
dread that.
It'll be a nightmare and you'll wake up.
No, I think, I would look at it as, am I giving my business leaders and the CEO the ability to take the right people and culture decisions? That's what I would wake up to see. How am I really supporting them there? Yeah.
So great. Thank you, folks. We've had a wonderful conversation. You
Thank you
guys
for
are
having us.
veterans in the industry.
Oh boy.
And this has been such a learning experience, not only for me, but even for our viewers. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed the
Thank you for
conversation. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.